Hello, welcome back to another edition of Road Talk with Cade. Today, in my life, is March 14th, 2025. In this episode, we'll be taking our second architectural tour around the city of Asheville. Please go back and watch episode number 25 to better understand the history of some of the most beautiful buildings that you're going to get to see in western North Carolina. In today's episode, as the title says, I'll be sharing with you 6 churches around town, where local members of the community come together to worship every Sunday. Over the past 3 weekends, I have attended 5 different church services. In my opinion, the large communal buildings only reach their true potential during the times of service, as the congregations sing their praises to the Lord. For me personally, churches are always some of the best buildings to study in architecture. Many of the buildings you see today were constructed well over 100 years ago. No matter the age of the structure, the effort and detail are consistent across every religion. When building a place of worship for God, every aspect of the building should be done in a way to honor Him. Asheville has a spectacular collection of churches that do a great job to display just that. The first church that I attended is the Basilica of St. Lawrence downtown. Following the themes of the first video, architect Raphael Guastavino came to Asheville to work on the Biltmore estate in the mid-1890s. After the construction of the project, he enjoyed the area so much, he decided to stay here. The basilica you see here was built from 1905 to 1909 in the Spanish Renaissance style, from where the architect came from. Heading into the interior of the church, the oval church has no wood or steel beams in the entire structure. All materials used on the church, from floor to the dome ceiling, are of masonry. My experience inside of the church gave a rather depressing vibe because of the all-gray interior. But don't let that take away from the fact that it is an absolute marvel of a building. However, the color choice and lack of natural lighting very well ties into that overarching feeling that the Catholic Church provides. The most interesting part that I found about the church is upon entering the building, through the front door, on your right side, the church is fitted with its very own gift shop. Now, I think they should try and be a little bit more creative when it comes to the name, but it still is something that I've never come across. After Mass, the priest gives an architect/history tour to share the art and history of the 116-year-old structure. Sadly, I could not stay for it, because I had my second sermon of the day that I had to go attend. The second church that I visited on 2/23/25 was the First Baptist Church that lies a few blocks east of the Basilica. Starting with the outside of the church, architect Douglas Ellington completed the Art Deco church in 1927. The 4-story tall domed church drops down into a polygonal brick facade. The front entrance to the church is equipped with an octa-style portico to welcome members and guests into the church for worship. From the outside, the building is another marvel to look at, crowned with a copper bell tower that points to the heavens. Time has allowed the metal to oxidize, sharing not only its beauty, but also the importance that the church has provided the congregation over the last 100 years. Once inside the stop sign-shaped church, you are hit with a stark contrast to what was inside the basilica we saw earlier. Upon entering the church, you are showered with light from the large glass windows on every side of the church. Pairing that with detailed white walls and a light blue ceiling, the church feels massive when you're inside. The immense amount of light, paired with the boisterous singing from the congregation, you can feel the love and life that resides inside the church community. I also would like to note the interesting layout of the 2-tiered church. The octagon shape of the church creates a lack of depth for seating, so a balcony was built into the original design. Unlike traditional church pews, the balcony is equipped with wooden, stadium-style cushioned seats to help churchgoers comfortably enjoy the service. With my 1-hour service attended at the church, I felt very welcomed by all of the people inside. On the first Sunday of March, I had my second straight weekend of visiting 2 church services in one day. The first church that I attended sat on the west side of Church Street, downtown. The church I went to was the Central United Methodist Church. In 1837, this congregation came together to build a little white structure on the same land as this beauty sits today, becoming Asheville's first church. Construction of the structure I'm showing you today started in 1902, ending with its completion in 1905. If you've been to the Biltmore before, you can see many similarities in not only the stonework between the 2 structures, but almost every aspect on the outside of the church took direct inspiration from the Biltmore. the front facade of the two-towered Gothic Revival-style church welcomes you in for worship. As I entered the church, I was surprised by how many people were inside of the building, because I didn't see many people entering from the side that I came in on. The church is much plainer visually on the inside compared to the outside. The main features being the decorative wood truss ceiling, which created symmetry with the rest of the wood around the church to accent the white walls, as well as an organ and a stained glass window that create the visual centerpiece of the church. My experience inside of the church was rather brief, with me only being able to stay for the first 45 minutes of the service before I had to walk across the street to attend my second service of the day. What I did experience inside the church was a small and older congregation that was happy to see a new face in the building. The church seemed rather relaxed in its style of presenting the service. By this point through this experience, I have started to pick up on and find it weird how words change with the different types of Christian churches, even though they're reading the same passages. Like, yeah, obviously that's why there's different sects of the religion, but it's just not something I've actively thought about until I'm saying the wrong words during the Lord's Prayer. The second church that I attended that day was First Presbyterian Church, which sits almost directly across Church Street. I guess that's why they call it Church Street, huh? The fourth church overall in this trip is a stunning red brick Gothic Revival-style church. The tall singular bell tower reminds me of many of the large churches from back home. My favorite detail of this church is the shape of the doors on the outside of the building. Sadly, I was unable to find out much history about the church online. After entering through the medieval castle-style front door, the inside of the church will stop you in your tracks, starting with the concrete plaster walls of the church holding beautiful glass pane windows. The masonry work that was done on the inside of the church is a work of art all in its own. Each window a carved, small pointed arch that matches the large arch in front of the church, giving way to the large organ pipes further back behind the altar. Another fine piece is the two large pillars that support the roof of the church. The best part to me on the inside of the church was the ceiling of the church that I spent most of my time looking at while I was inside. The decorative wooden trusses are a work of art all in themselves. The dark wood-stained ceiling I thought was an interesting finish, as most dark ceilings make a room feel smaller, but it didn't seem to have much of a negative effect on the Presbyterian church. My one service experience that I had inside this church was overwhelmingly positive. I was greeted at the door by an elder. Everyone inside of the church was friendly towards me, even asked me to take part in communion with them. I refused as I feel it is not right for me to take and eat outside of my own church. Nonetheless, the congregation has a stunning place of worship that they should all be proud of. The last church that I attended is at Grace Episcopal Church on the north side of Asheville. The stone structure that you see here was finished in 1905. With the ever-common theme where architect Richard Sharp Smith, who came to Asheville to work on the Biltmore, decided to stick around and leave his own personal mark on the town. The Gothic church you see today is almost exactly the same structure as it was when it was built 100 years ago. From the outside, you can tell that this church isn't nearly the size of the previous churches we have been to on this trip. Size doesn't make the beauty, but rather the craftsmanship that went into every stone during construction. The rough stone exterior and bell tower give the building an extremely castle-like presence as it sits upon the hill. The red doors are a great accent to the rough outside of the structure, giving you a welcome entrance to the inside of the building. Now inside, you can see the walls are stone all the way through. Running along each side of the church are again pointed arched stained glass windows to help bring color and light into the dark interior of the building. Grace Episcopal is not nearly as large as many of the structures we have seen throughout this video, but the small size creates for an intimate and homely feeling inside of the church. A splendid place of worship that is well worth laying your eyes on. The last church that I'm going to share with you, much like the last video, is going to end on a rather grim note. The Cathedral of All Souls is a church that sits in the Biltmore village that was ravaged by Hurricane Helene. So because of that tragedy, I am unable to attend a service at this church, but when they do reopen, I hope to be able to go and attend at least one service in that stunning building. The Cathedral of All Souls was constructed 1 year after the Biltmore was completed. The church itself was built for George Vanderbilt by Richard Morris Hunt, respectfully the owner and architect of the Biltmore. Of the 6 churches that Hunt built during his architectural career, this is the only one that is left standing. The style of the church is derived from the Norman period, while architecture styles transition from Romanesque to Gothic. The church was designed as the anchor point in the Biltmore Village. From the outside, the church is nothing short of a marvel to look at. Hunt's ability to blend depth, shades, and materials together is displayed excellently around the entire church. Blending red brick and stucco give the building a unique character along the exterior walls. Then crowning the building with a multi-pitched roof that is in one spot a perfect cone shape. The church is one example in Hunt's collection that gave him the name, the Dean of American Architecture. Churches are an important place in our society, spanning every religion on every continent. In some places they have different names, such as mosques or temples, but they all serve a similar purpose, a place for a collective group of people to gather for worship, all built in a unique way to share the gifts of their congregation that reside inside. Most people my age don't go to church anymore, which is sad. The custom of going to church has been a staple of my ancestry for over 1,000 years. The communal experience that is found inside of a church is an important part of keeping myself grounded in life. I hope you all enjoyed learning about some of the unique structures that I get to enjoy and see on a regular basis. That's all for now, folks. As always, thank you for listening. I love you. Bye.